In 1999, paying online was a leap of faith. You'd go to a website, type in your card number, with no idea if there was a real store on the other end, or some guy in a basement, hit send, and pray. A group of 20-somethings in Silicon Valley solved that problem, and in the process, accidentally built the most brutal genius factory in history. Out of that office would come the founders of Tesla, SpaceX, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Palantir. But here's where it gets absurd. Today, that company moves almost $2 trillion a year, more than Spain's entire GDP, and yet its stock has lost 80% of its value. They've fired 2 CEOs in 3 years, and Stripe, a company that isn't even publicly traded, is worth 4 times more and is thinking about buying them.
The middleman trap. When your only value is standing between 2 people who want to make a transaction, you survive exactly until someone builds a direct path. And that's what happened to PayPal.
To understand how the company that invented digital payments ended up being the most expendable player in the industry it created, we need to go back to the garage. It's December 1998. Max Levchin, a 23-year-old Ukrainian obsessed with cryptography, crosses paths with Peter Thiel at a conference at Stanford. Thiel is a lawyer-turned-investor looking for one thing only: brilliant people who don't fit the system. Levchin pitches him an idea: transferring money through the infrared ports of Palm Pilots, those electronic organizers that executives carried around. Thiel puts in $500,000, and they found Confinity. But it turns out nobody uses a Palm Pilot to pay for dinner. And that's when they came up with something much simpler. What if we just send money by email? The idea was straightforward. You enter someone's email, type an amount, and that person gets a message saying, "You've been sent $50. Click here to collect." The money sat in an account inside PayPal, like a digital wallet, and from there you could transfer it to your bank or use it to pay someone else. No giving your card to a stranger, no shady middlemen. They called the service PayPal, literally, your pal for paying. And that changed everything. What they didn't know was that 3 blocks away, a 27-year-old South African named Elon Musk was building exactly the same thing. Musk had just sold his first company for $300 million, had put $12 million of his own money into X.com, his vision of an online bank that would do everything: accounts, investments, insurance, loans. And it turns out X.com also had an email.
2 startups on the same street, burning money to solve the same problem with opposite philosophies. Levchin and Thiel want to do one thing perfectly. Musk wants to build the bank of the future, and neither has enough money to win alone.
And the war breaks out on eBay. Because eBay, the biggest auction site in the world, was the only place where millions of people needed to pay strangers every single day. eBay had its own payment system, but it was slow and clunky, so sellers started putting on their own listings, "I accept PayPal" or "I accept X.com." Each seller chose which payment gateway to offer, and PayPal and X.com fought to win them over by giving away money. $10 for signing up, 10 for every friend you referred. X.com doubled the bet. Between the two of them, they burned through more than 60 million, but the growth was brutal. 7% daily. 1 million users by March 2000, 5 million by summer. And eBay's own system couldn't even compete. But neither had enough money to hold out much longer. So in March 2000, they decide to merge. 50-50. The resulting company is called X.com at the legal level, because Musk insisted the name had more future. But the payment product, the website where people send and receive money, keeps being called PayPal. 2 brands, 1 company. And this is where things get ugly. Musk starts making decisions that horrify his own team. He wants to migrate the entire system from Unix to Windows. He wants to kill the PayPal brand and call everything X.com, even though they run surveys with users and people confuse X.com with a porn site. And on top of that, he puts the brakes on the fraud detection system that Levchin had been programming for months. An automatic filter that identified fake accounts before they could steal money. What nobody expected was that in September 2000, while Musk boards a plane for his honeymoon in Australia, 4 of his own partners, Levchin, Thiel, Sachs, and Hoffman, meet at a bar in Palo Alto and decide to stage a coup. They go straight to Sequoia Capital, the venture capital fund that had millions invested in the company, and a vote on the board of directors. They convince them that Musk is sinking the ship. And when Musk lands in Australia and turns on his phone, he's no longer the boss. But note, they fire him as CEO, not as an owner. Musk keeps almost 12% of the shares, the biggest stake of all. And that's going to be very important later. Peter Thiel takes command, and the first thing he does is rename the company. No more X.com. Now everything is called PayPal. But the big problem isn't the name. It's that PayPal is losing $12 million a month to fraud. The scammer's trick was using automated programs that created thousands of fake accounts at once, pumped in stolen money, pulled it out, and disappeared before anyone noticed. And if the card companies, Visa, MasterCard, decided that PayPal was a fraud nest and cut off their access, the business was over. And it was Levchin who saved them. He invented one of the first versions of CAPTCHA, those prove you're human tests we all use today. The idea was simple. If creating an account requires passing a test that only a human can solve, the automated programs stop working, and with them, the fraud collapsed.
PayPal survives a war, a coup, and a $12 million a month hemorrhage. Each time it comes out stronger. But that creates a mirage. When a company survives everything, it starts believing it's invincible. And invincibility is always the prelude to irrelevance.
In February 2002, PayPal goes public at $13 a share and jumps 55% on the first day. And just 5 months later, eBay decides that if they can't beat them, they'll buy them. $1.5 billion. And this is where Musk's 12% pays off. He walks away with $170 million and puts it all into 2 companies he's just founded, SpaceX and Tesla. But the truly absurd part isn't what Musk did. It's what all the others did. Because when eBay buys PayPal, the original employees find themselves in a culture that's everything they hate. Bureaucracy, endless meetings, decisions that take weeks instead of hours. At PayPal, an engineer could debate face-to-face with the CEO. At eBay, you had to fill out forms to talk to your boss. Within 4 years, almost all of them had left. But they stayed connected, funded each other, and built empires. Thiel created Palantir and was the first investor in Facebook. Hoffman founded LinkedIn. 3 engineers started YouTube, which Google bought for $1.65 billion. Levchin created Affirm, and Botha, the CFO, went to Sequoia Capital, and from there invested in Instagram, WhatsApp, and Airbnb. Fortune magazine took a photo of them dressed as mobsters and christened them the PayPal Mafia. probably the most successful group of founders in history.
And here's the cruelest irony. Tesla alone is worth over $1 trillion today. YouTube generates more revenue than many countries. But PayPal, the mother that brought them all together, Chloe, had spent years locked inside eBay with nobody letting it grow.
Until in 2014, an investor named Carl Icahn, a guy who buys shares in companies to force changes from the inside, pushes to separate PayPal from eBay. And it works. In July 2015, PayPal is publicly traded on its own again. It expands, buys Venmo, the peer-to-peer payments app that every American college student uses. And when the pandemic hits in 2020, and suddenly the entire planet needs to pay online, the stock goes from $120 to $310. $356 billion in valuation. More than Goldman Sachs, more than almost any bank in the world. 426 million accounts. Everyone assumes PayPal is going to dominate digital payments for the next decade. Everyone is wrong. And the fall starts where nobody expected. Not in a scandal, not in a fraud, not in a bad decision. It starts with something much quieter: the button. The Pay with PayPal button was the most profitable product in the entire company. Every time someone clicked it, instead of entering their card directly on a website, PayPal took a commission. For years, that button was synonymous with paying online. But after the pandemic, something changed. And the reason is as simple as it is brutal. Apple put Apple Pay inside every iPhone. 1.8 billion devices that already come with a built-in payment gateway. No downloads, no account creation. Google did the same with 3 billion Androids. And Stripe, a company founded by two Irish brothers in 2010, offered online stores tools so good for charging cards directly that the PayPal button was no longer needed. And the key difference is this. With Apple Pay or Google Pay, the money goes directly from your bank account to the store. No middlemen, no need to create another account, nobody holding your money in between. With PayPal, you had to have a PayPal account with a balance, or with your bank linked, and PayPal acted as a middleman between you and the store. And when your phone can already do the same thing without a middleman, why do you need PayPal?
And this is the cruelest lesson in digital business. It doesn't matter who invented the product. If your competition comes pre-installed on 5 billion devices, you're an optional download, they're part of the hardware. That game was lost before it even started.
The result was devastating. The PayPal button went from growing 6% to growing just 1% in barely a year. And we're talking about the product that made them the most money. And on top of that, companies like Klarna and Affirm showed up, offering something that hooked buyers. You buy a $100 pair of sneakers, you take them home today, and you pay in 3 or 4 installments over the next few months. No interest. The store gets paid immediately, and it's Klarna who takes on the risk of you paying. PayPal tried to do the same thing, but they were too late. The company tried to react. In September 2023, the board brought in Alex Chriss as the new CEO. He came from Intuit, a financial software company. He had experience in the sector, and he promised to use artificial intelligence and cryptocurrency to reinvent PayPal from within. He launched a bunch of initiatives, reorganized teams, talked about innovation in every presentation. But 2 years went by, and the numbers weren't improving. And then, in February 2026, PayPal published the results of the last quarter. And it was a disaster. Revenue came in below expectations. Profits, too. And worst of all, the forecast for the following year was flat. when Wall Street was expecting 8% growth. And what happened next is one of those moments that define a company's life. On February 3, 2026, PayPal's stock dropped 20% in a single session. $9 billion in value evaporated before the market closed. And that same day, the board fired Chris. 2 CEOs taken out in 3 years.
2 CEOs in 3 years isn't bad luck, Brain. It's the board acknowledging that the problem isn't who's driving, but that the car is on a road that no longer leads anywhere.
And the replacement says a lot about what's coming. Enrique Lores, a Spaniard who had been running HP, where he'd executed one of the most aggressive restructurings in the tech industry. You don't hire a restructurer to innovate. You hire one to dismantle what doesn't work and sell the parts. And that gives a pretty clear idea of how the board sees PayPal's future. And then, Bloomberg dropped the bomb that left the entire industry speechless. Stripe, the company worth $159 billion without being publicly traded, was exploring buying PayPal. The student buying the school. The company that was born to solve payments for programmers, considering absorbing the company that invented payments for everyone.
Being first doesn't give you a throne. In a hell, it gives you a window.
PayPal had a 15-year head start and didn't build anything that was impossible to copy. The button was convenient, but anyone could make another button. And that's what happened. If you start a business and your product can be replicated with relative ease, you need to ask yourself, what am I building that my competitors cannot copy? Because if the answer is nothing, you're living on borrowed time.
If the people who make your company great leave, what's left? The product or the shell?
The PayPal Mafia created Tesla, YouTube, LinkedIn, Palantir. Together, they're worth over $1 trillion. But PayPal kept the button and let go of the brains that would have reinvented it every 5 years. And that happens to any business. If your competitive advantage is your people, and those people leave, it doesn't matter how good your product is today. Tomorrow, it'll be a machine running on inertia. And inertia always runs out.
Don't confuse a tailwind with your own engine.
The pandemic pushed the entire planet to pay online, and PayPal grew like never before. But that growth wasn't theirs. It was the context's. And when the context changed, it turned out PayPal hadn't built anything new in years. If your business is growing, ask yourself the uncomfortable question: am I growing because I'm good, or because the market is pushing me? Because when the market stops pushing, and it always stops pushing, the only thing that saves you is what you've built yourself.
Your business today, is it the engine or the tailwind?